Welcome back to the shop. Here's a fun project that you can probably make in just a few hours, and it's a useful project. I'm calling it a tall handle step stool. Probably the most annoying thing about using a step stool is bending over to pick it up. Having this handle makes it really easy to move the stool around, and it kind of helps you to get on the step stool. And when you're not using it, you can hang it on the wall. That's what I'm going to do with this one. I made this as a model to use out here in the shop, but now I'm going to make a nicer one out of cherry. And this project is only 5 parts. You have a back, a seat or a step, a front leg, and 2 braces. I would say the most difficult part of this project is the back. So we'll get started by making a pattern so we can cut the back using a flush cut bit in the router. Support for this project is provided by Biloxygen. Biloxygen will replace the oxygen in the can with a heavier argon gas and prevent your oil-based paints and finishes from going bad while in storage. Click on the link below to learn more about Biloxygen or visit Biloxygen at biloxygen.com. To make the pattern, I'm using a piece of scrap 1/4 inch MDF core plywood. You could also use 1/2 inch MDF. I like to use MDF for patterns because it sands so easily. I've already ripped this at 9.5, and that's the width of the stool. The next step is to cross cut it at 36. Now I'll make a mark in the center at both ends, then use a straight edge and draw a line down the middle. Measuring up from the bottom, I'll make a mark at 11 and then 13 1/16 and use a framing square to draw a line across. At the top line, measuring over from the center, I'll make a mark at 2 3/8 on both sides. Then I'm using a quart size paint can to make this radius. At the top of the handle, measuring over from the center, I'll make a mark 1.5 inches on each side. And I've made this compass where the screws 1.5 inches from the pencil point, and I'll hold the compass so the pencil point is at the top of the stool handle. Put the screw in the center line and draw the radius. And now I can use a straight edge to connect the lines. I'll use a jigsaw to cut the curves and a circular saw for the straight cuts. After making the cuts, I made a curved sanding block to sand the cuts smooth. Now that I have my pattern made, I can get started on cutting the parts of the stool. You can see I've already cross-cut these to a rough length, and that'll make the boards easier to push through the saw and help me get a more accurate cut. Next, I'll cut the back and the front leg of the stool to length. Before I cut the pattern in the back, I'm going to cut the notches out in the front leg and in the back for the braces. I've used a piece of scrap wood to adjust the height of the blade. I'm working on the front leg first. I've set up a stop block and I'm ready to make the cuts. To cut the notch in the back, I've set up a stop block to make the top cut first. I'll make this cut, flip the board, make the top cut up here, readjust the stop block, and then make the bottom cuts, and then clear out the material. Before I cut the pattern in the back and while I still have a straight edge, I'll find the center of the board and mark out to drill the hole. Now holding the pattern flush at the bottom and on the sides, I'll trace the pattern and then cut it out, rough cut I should say, with the jigsaw. I've taped the pattern to the back. I'll flip it over, clamp it to the table, and the ball bearing will follow the pattern and clean up the cut. Okay, and that worked out really good. A little bit of burning on this one curve, but not too bad. I can take care of that with a little sandpaper. I'll save the pattern. Next time I want to make a stool, it'll be that much easier. The next step is to make the bracing that will connect the back to the front leg. The braces for the stool are 4 inches at the back of the stool and 3 inches at the front of the stool. And to help me make both braces exactly the same, I'm making another pattern. I ripped this piece of plywood at the same time I was ripping the braces. These fit right into that little notch there. It's a nice tight fit right now. And at the front, I'll need to trim this up a little bit. So I'm going to make this first cut on the table saw, coming in on the brace about 2.5 inches. Then I'll back the piece out and use a thin piece of wood to help create that bend. Once the pattern looks good, I'll transfer it onto the parts. I've got this thin stick clamped flush with the cut that I made. I've got a mark here. I'll bend the stick over and trace a line. All of the measurements and angles are covered in the plans, and I'll have a link to them down in the description below. I used a little sawdust NCA glue to smooth out the transition between the table saw cut and the jigsaw cut. This is a nice fit now, nice and flush at the top. And the next step is to transfer the pattern onto the parts. With the pattern clamped on, flush at the top, I'll clean up the cut with a flush cut bit in the router. Now I'm going to cut a 7-degree angle on both the front and back of the brace. Before I start putting the stool together, I'll cut this part out on both the front and back. Just a simple 15-degree angle. I'll take my measurements from this piece. And again, make this cut with the jigsaw. After making the cuts at the bottom of the stool, I drilled the hole at the top of the stool, gave all the parts a good sanding, and now I can start putting it together. Now I'm ready to attach the step, but you can see that it does look a little heavy at the front edge here. So before I attach it, I'll use a chamfer bit in the router to ease the bottom of the front edge. Okay, well, here we are with the finished step stool. After plugging the holes with the square pegs, I gave the stool a good sanding, and right now it has 1 coat of finish. I'll end up adding another 3 or 4 more coats. Now, full disclosure, I did have a little bit of a hiccup with this project, which isn't that uncommon. When I was driving this screw, I ended up splitting the front leg. All I did to fix it was back the screw out, clamp the leg back together with a little 5-minute epoxy, pre-drill the hole a little deeper, and then use a longer screw. and no one would ever know. I'm telling you this because if you have a problem, don't throw in the towel. You can fix it. Just maybe walk away from it for a minute or two, fix it, and that's all part of woodworking. Now, one of the reasons why I really love working with Cherry is not only is it very workable, not only is it very nice to work with and very inexpensive, but look at the beautiful color it becomes in just a short amount of time. So I built this step stool about 2 years ago, but really within about 3 or 4 months, it became this really nice dark red brown color. And that's exactly what's going to happen to this stool. I hope you enjoyed this project. Any of you'd like to see or build some more of my furniture designs, right now I'm having a 30% off sale that runs through Cyber Monday. All of my project plans, my plan bundles, and some of my framed paintings. So if you're looking for something for someone special, maybe you'll find it at johnpeters.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.